What's going on, guys? My name is Keggernaut, but just call me Keg, and patch 7.25 is finally upon us. We have a whole slew of new content to do. We've got the Tomb of Sargeras raid, we have Mythic Plus changes, we have new world quests and whatever, but we also have a bunch of new class balancing changes, and a lot of those have been put onto the Brewmaster Monk. So I'm here to teach you guys exactly how to play this tank class to the best of your ability in this new patch. So if you go ahead and look in the description, I have a bunch of timestamps for everything you need in this guide. There's rotational changes, there's talents and stat priorities and all that good stuff. So go ahead and take a look at the description down below, and I'll see you guys in a second for the rest of the guide. Alright, so as always, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go ahead into the basic spells here and just kind of get a quick summary and a quick understanding of how this class works. So Tiger Palm is one of our main abilities that we're going to be pressing quite often. It is a low damage ability that costs 25 energy, which is also going to reduce the cooldowns of all of our brews. That's Iron Skin, Purifying, Black Ox, and Fortifying Brew by 1 second. So it reduces all of those brew cooldowns by 1 second every time we cast Tiger Palm. And Tiger Palm is the main ability that we're going to use in order to keep our energy low. We don't ever want to cap out on 100 energy. That is bad. That is a waste of resources, a waste of DPS, a waste of defensives. So we want to make sure that we use Tiger Palm every now and then to make sure that we're still underneath 100 energy. Now, Keg Smash is another ability that we're going to be using in order to keep our energy low and also to reduce the cooldowns of our Iron Skin brews and our Purifying brews and all that. So Keg Smash is a very high damage ability. It's an AoE ability, and on top of that, it's going to reduce the brew cooldowns by 4 seconds instead of just Tiger Palm's 1 second. Now, however, Keg Smash does cost 40 energy as opposed to Tiger Palm's 25, so it is a little bit more costly, but the benefits definitely outweigh the cons. So we want to use Keg Smash on cooldown. We want to cast this as much as possible in a fight because it is the most damaging ability that we have, while also maintaining good defensives from Iron Skin and Purifying Brew and keeping our energy low. Also, Keg Smash is going to put a debuff on the target, which is going to reduce their movement speed by 50% for like 10 seconds. And that debuff works really well with Breath of Fire. So Breath of Fire is a conal AoE fire attack, which is going to obviously do fire damage immediately. And then if your targets have the debuff from Keg Smash, they're going to start burning for extra fire damage. So think of it as, you douse your enemy in beer, so you're throwing a Keg Smash at them, right? And then you're going to set them on fire afterwards. So they're going to be burning for more damage because that alcohol is burning and it's starting to set them aflame. So Breath of Fire really works well for both doing DPS, and then also with one of our artifact traits, we're going to be taking less damage from enemies that have this Breath of Fire debuff on them. So we want to make sure that we maintain 100% uptime on this Breath of Fire debuff while also maintaining Keg Smash on cooldown, and then also keeping our energy low by pressing both Tiger Palm and Keg Smash. So there's very good interplay between these three abilities. Now, Stagger is the main crux of how our tanking works. If we didn't have Stagger, we would just basically be a weaker Windwalker Monk. Well, we would be a more tanky Windwalker Monk while also doing like half the damage that they do. So because we have Stagger, we're able to actually tank and deal with the damage appropriately. So what is Stagger? How does Stagger work? Stagger, basically, we have a baseline 40% Stagger, which means that we're going to take 40% physical damage over time, and we're going to take 60% of it up front. So to use some low-level numbers, let's say we get hit with 100 damage, right? And we don't have any Stagger, right? Then we're just going to lose 100 health, right? However, since we always have Stagger, we have a baseline 40% Stagger, then we're going to take 60 damage to our health, and we're going to take 40 damage over time, over 10 seconds. And that debuff is going to tick 2 times a second, so every 0.5 seconds, and it's going to do that damage over time, over 10 seconds. So with bigger numbers, let's say we're talking about 1 million damage. If I get hit with 1 million damage, right, which is about 1/7 of my health bar almost, then I'm going to take 600k immediately. So my health bar is going to dip quite low, right, like right here, let's say, and then 400k is going to be done over 10 seconds. So that's pretty powerful, right? Now, Iron Skin Brew is going to increase the amount of stagger that we can have. So instead of only having 40%, we're going to have 75% stagger. And if we're playing well, which hopefully you guys will be playing well after you finish this guide, then you're going to be able to keep up Ironskin Brew 100% of the time while you're tanking, which means that you will have a constant 75% stagger. So the majority of the damage that you take is going to be over time. It's not going to be immediately, which means that it allows our healers to more appropriately react to our damage. We have a slow descent into death versus other tanks that might be very spiky. You know, they come down real fast, then they heal it back up, or the healers heal them back up. And so it's very hectic and very frantic, and people don't really understand, you know, are they going to die in the next attack or not? Brewmasters always know that they have time to react to that damage. Now, Ironskin Brew shares a cooldown with Purifying Brew. But before we talk more about Purifying Brew, let's go ahead and finish and wrap up on Ironskin Brew. So Ironskin Brew has a couple extra nuances. It only has a max duration of 24 seconds, which is 3 times its base duration of 8 seconds. So if you're going to cast Ironskin Brew while you have 22 seconds on that buff available, then you're only going to get an extra 2 seconds. You're not going to get the full 8 that you should, because it only caps out at 24. So you want to make sure that you have some sort of week or something that is going to notify you when it is safe to use Ironskin Brew to get the full effect out of this ability. You don't want to waste any precious seconds, because seconds are very, very important for this spec. So you want to make sure that you do not overcap on Ironskin Brew. Now, talking about Purifying Brew, Ironskin Brew is going to increase the amount of stagger that we can have, and Purifying Brew is going to remove the damage from stagger. It's going to erase, it's going to delete, throw away, whatever word you want to use. It's going to completely remove that damage. Purifying Brew only removes 40% of it though. So while it's still a big amount, it's not the entire thing. So if we're getting 10 million damage in our stagger dot, that's probably appropriate to Legion levels of damage. You know, we're take 7 million health, 10 million damage. That sounds about right. So if we have 10 million damage in our stagger dot, that's pretty panicking, you know. We've taken it over 10 seconds though, so it's pretty manageable. However, 10 million is still quite a lot. We want to get rid of that. We don't want to deal with that damage. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Purifying Brew, which is going to remove 40% of that damage. So instead of taking 10 million over 10 seconds, we're going to remove 4 million, and then now all of a sudden we're only taking 6 million damage, which is not going to kill us, and it's going to allow our healers to maintain our health bar. As we slowly start ticking down, they can start to slowly start healing us back up. So we get to be a very smooth tank. We get to manage our DPS, not our DPS, our damage taken per second. We get to manage that a lot better than other tanks can, and it allows our healers a much, you know, happier time, because we're not going to be so spiky all the time. So Tiger Palm and Keg Smash are going to be used in order to reduce the cooldowns of these two, Ironskin and Purifying Brew. So the more that you use these guys, the more that you can use these two. And then both of these work with Stagger in order to make a very happy tank. So yes, Stagger is a very confusing ability. Another thing that adds to its nuance is that Stagger only works at 40% effectiveness versus magic damage. So all that thing that I was talking about with having 40%, 75% stagger, that only works for physical damage. Magic damage is at 40% effectiveness. So we're going to be taking more damage up front to our health bar and less damage as a dot when we are working with magic damage. So yes, it's a little unfortunate, but we can fix this with a talent called Mystic Vitality. But in the end of the day, we are a little bit more prone to magic damage than we are physical damage, and we can make up for that with our talents, and we can make up for that with some of our stats. But we will talk about that later in the guide, so please stick around, and I hope to help you guys out. Alright, so now that we went over kind of the basic spells and abilities, what we're going to do is go through the entire spell book, and hopefully I can teach you guys about some of the little quirks and other things that weren't mentioned in the basic spells. So Blackout Strike, well, Blackout's Brew is a talent. It's denoted here, so I'm just going to skip the talents because we'll leave that to the talent section. So Blackout Strike is a flat 3-second cooldown. It's quite a high damaging attack. You see here it does almost 420k physical damage, and it's going to generate a stack of Elusive Brawler. Now before we say anything, Elusive Brawler, which I have also mentioned from Breath of Fire and Blackout Strike both generate these stacks of Elusive Brawler. And Elusive Brawler is our mastery, so each time you are hit by a melee attack, so you have to be hit by an auto attack, or hit with Blackout Strike or Breath of Fire, you gain stacking 31% dodge chance until your next successful dodge. Also increases your attack power by 31%. Now, that's going to vary depending on your own mastery level. So the main crux that we have to take away from this is that we have a stacking dodge chance with Elusive Brawler. So if you look at my stats here, I have a baseline 20% dodge, and I also have almost 32% mastery. So after I get one stack of mastery, or one stack of elusive dodge, I should say, I'm going to have a little bit over 50% chance to dodge the next attack. So it's pretty powerful, and it's pretty cool how much we dodge, but what that really means is that Brewmaster is a very dodge-centric tank. We take very little damage from auto attacks because we're dodging like all of the auto attacks. On my heroic Kill Jaden kill, the first time I killed heroic Kill Jaden, I looked at the logs afterwards. I ended up dodging 83% of his attacks. Now, that is just auto attacks, of course. 83% of his auto attacks. I still took damage from Fell Claws. I still took damage from Armageddon and everything else, but I dodged 83% of his melees. And if most of the damage that we take nowadays is from boss melee attacks, then that tells you that Brewmasters are very, very strong this tier because, of course, they're just dodging everything. So Blackout Strike is our main means of generating these stacks outside of just getting hit. Additionally, Blackout Strike helps us to empower other abilities when we use Blackout Combo, but we'll talk about that in the talent section. So we already talked about Breath of Fire. Crackling Jade Lightning is a quick like ranged pickup tool where the best way to use this is if you see like a worm out over in the distance that you need to grab and you want to bring him to you guys, then you just target the worm and quickly tap Crackling Jade Lightning, and then you just stop channeling the ability and he should start to aggro and go towards you. That's really all you use it for. It doesn't do enough damage and it costs too much energy to actually use in your rotation, so you just kind of use it to grab an enemy real quick and then just leave him alone. Now, Detox is a dispel. We don't really use this, but it's kind of useful sometimes, depending on like if it's a poison effect that we can get rid of. Effuse is a self-heal. It's like Flash of Light from, you know, Paladins, but it's not nearly as effective, so we just kind of forget about it. Expel Harm. This costs 15 energy, and all of the little Ox Orbs that you'll start to see that spawn around you when you tank, they're a glowing yellowy orange orb, so you'll definitely be able to see them and spot them. But Expel Harm, what it does is it just kind of brings all of those orbs into you at once, and then it does a small amount of damage based on how much you got healed. So what you can do is you can just walk over the orbs instead, and you don't have to do the 15 energy cost. However, you know, boss positioning and all that stuff, you might not want to move. So that's where Expel Harm comes in. Plus, if you drink all the orbs up at once, it's one big heal as opposed to very small heals that come in every now and then since you're walking over them. Now, Exploding Keg is our artifact ability. It's a 1.25 minute cooldown. So quite a short cooldown. It's like around 70 seconds, I think. But what Exploding Keg does is the tooltip is incorrect. This actually just got hotfixed, I believe, yesterday, so it was kind of lucky that I waited a little bit longer to make this guide. But Exploding Keg, what it used to do, and what it says on the tooltip, is that it used to blind targets for 3 seconds. So it does a big burst of damage, and then it just makes all the targets affected miss their melee attacks. So you just are basically invincible from auto attacks for 3 seconds. However, now what it's going to do once they update the tooltips, Exploding Keg now reduces enemy auto attack damage by 99%. And the reason why they changed it is because some of the abilities were getting cheesed in bosses from raids and dungeons where they were like, oh, you know, this is not okay, so we need to change this. So the damage that you're going to be taking is negligible. I mean, 1% damage from an auto attack is literally nothing. So don't worry about it. Just know that you can't really cheese anything anymore because of this, but you'll still be taking way less damage. Either way, Exploding Keg is just basically used for the DPS anyway, because since we're dodging so much because of the mastery stacks we get from Breath of Fire and Blackout Strike, we're basically just having Exploding Keg be a DPS cooldown anyway. So you kind of want to delay this so that you can get as many targets as possible with this artifact ability. Now, Fortifying Brew is our main shield wall. It's a big, beefy 7-minute cooldown, but it's definitely deserving of that cooldown because it just makes us basically invincible, God mode, for 15 seconds. So when we have Fortifying Brew up for 15 seconds, we're going to have an increase to our current and maximum health. So that means that we're going to receive a small little heal because it's a current health increase. So that is going to be increased by 20%. Also, it's going to increase the damage you delay with Stagger by an additional 10%. So instead of having 40% baseline, we're going to have 50% baseline while we have Fortifying Brew up. And then on top of that, we're going to reduce all damage we take by 20%. So there's a lot of different modifiers on this ability, but that's why it's got a 7-minute cooldown. Additionally, why it has a 7-minute cooldown is because this can be reduced by our Tiger Palm and our Keg Smash. So we want to make sure that we're using our rotation properly so that we can possibly maybe get 2 casts out of this. However, usually in a fight, you're only going to get 1 cast. So you want to make sure that you use Fortifying Brew wisely. Now, we already talked about Iron Skin Brew. We talked about Keg Smash. Paralysis is kind of like a sap, basically, although it doesn't really put them to sleep. So if you walk next to them, you will aggro that mob, just he'll only start moving after the debuff expires. So you want to make sure that you're careful when walking around your paralysis targets, but just know that you can stop them from doing something with this ability. Now, Provoke is our taunt. It has a 30-yard range, and it just taunts the target. But the cool thing about the Monk taunt is that Provoke basically puts a buff or a debuff on them that allows the target to move 50% faster for like 2-3 seconds. So it's very good for repositioning mobs. I use it all the time in dungeons where I need to just get the boss in this position or get this ad over here faster. So Provoke really, really helps in repositioning things, and it's the only tank that has that movement modifier on it. So it's pretty cool. Now, we talked about Purifying Brew as well. Resuscitate is our res, it doesn't matter. Rushing Jade Wind's a talent. Spear Hand Strike is our interrupt, so anytime there's a cast that you need to interrupt, just use this ability. Blackhawk Statue is a talent. We talked about Tiger Palm. Transcendence is a cool ability. It's basically like a Warlock portal, but better and also a little bit different. So what we do is we use Transcendence and we kind of place our spirit in this little area. So if I move over to the right here, you'll see that my spirit is down here, right? So we are going to use an ability after that called Transcendence Transfer, which says that your body and spirit swap locations. So if my spirit is sitting here and doing its thing, and I fall down to the floor over here, right? Now I'm out of range of my spirit, right? But if I want to get back to that spot, all I have to do is press Transcendence Transfer, and as long as I'm in range, I get teleported back to that original location. So me and my spirit swap positions. So I'm up here now, my spirit is now down there on the floor. And then we can, of course, keep moving this around by using Transcendence Transfer again, or we can reposition this to use, in a different spot of the fight. Mostly in Tomb of Sargeras, Transcendence is used to reset bosses, so you can put this outside the boss arena, and then if you need to reset, just make sure that you have aggro on the boss, run over to your spirit, transfer over there, and then the boss should run to you, and then it resets the fight because they're no longer in the boss arena. So that's a little bit of extra cool flair that you can do with the Brewmaster spells. Zen Flight is an ability, doesn't really do anything in combat. Zen Meditation is another defensive that we have. It's a 5-minute cooldown, and it's going to reduce all damage that we take by 60% for 8 seconds. It's a channeled ability, so you can't do anything else during this channel. But it says moving, being hit by a melee attack, or taking another action will cancel this effect. So when you're using Zen Med, you cannot move. If you get hit by anything that's a melee attack, it will cancel the effect, and if you cast any other ability, it will also cancel this effect. So it's quite cool because it's 60% reduction for 8 seconds, but also it's got some downsides to it. So while you're in this state, you see it's an 8-second channel, you cannot do anything. So you want to make sure that before you do this, you have at least 8 seconds on your Iron Skin Brew, and you also want to make sure that what you're trying to mitigate is, of course, mitigatable by this channel. Now, yes, a physical attack will interrupt the channel, but it still is going to mitigate that attack. So what you can do is, let's say on Kill Jaden, right? You're about to take the 5th Fell Claw, that big bad one that hits you really, really hard. You don't have any externals. You have no more healing. You have no more cooldowns, nothing. You are going to die if you take this 5th Fell Claw. What you can do, you can use Zen Med, right? And start channeling your little thing, and then he'll start to hit you. once he hits you, it's going to cancel your channel, but that spell that hits you, which the one that canceled it, is going to get reduced by 60%. So Zen Med is mostly used to either deal with heavy magic damage that's coming in, to where you could just use this, of course, and not get hit by anything, or you can use it to mitigate one big melee attack. So like the example I said, kill Jaden, you could just mitigate one big attack. So that's kind of what Zen Med is used for. This gets a little bit more utility with one of our legendaries, but of course we're going to talk about that in the legendary section. Now, Zen Pilgrimage, this is our class hall teleport. You don't have to worry about that. We get a little bit more armor from abilities. I mean, not abilities. We just get a little bit more armor in general with Brewmaster's Balance. Celestial Fortune is a passive for us. It is related to our crit. So we have a chance equal to our crit strike to be healed for an additional 65% of the amount healed. So if I'm getting healed by a rejuvenation, right, and I'm getting healed for 100, 100, 100, 100, if I have my crit, which is sitting at around 32-ish%, then I have almost a 32% chance to get healed for an additional 65. So instead of getting healed for 100, 100, 100, sometimes I'll be healed for 165, 165, 100, and it just kind of keeps going like that, just off of rejuvenation. Now, this can work for anything. This can work for an Ox Orb that you have. This can work for a Paladin Holy Shock. Any healing that you receive can be subject to Celestial Fortune. And when we're talking about Holy Shocks or anything else, let's say you get crit for a 2 million heal on a Healing Surge or a Holy Shock or a Flash of Light. If we also proc our crit strike from Celestial Fortune, then we can get healed for an extra 65% of that. So we get healed for a pretty large amount, and pretty regularly too with Celestial Fortune. So that makes crit very strong for us. Now, Gift of the Ox, when you take damage, you have a chance to summon a healing sphere visible only to you, and moving through this sphere will heal you for a certain amount of health. So like I said before, your healing orbs are going to look glowy. They're going to be yellowy orange. You'll very clearly be able to tell them. And yes, the tooltip says you have a chance to spawn them when you take damage, but basically what it really does is that I have 7.3 million health. So if I'm going to be taking damage before mitigation, before damage reduction, before stagger. So if I'm going to get hit with an attack that does 10 million damage, then I'm going to immediately spawn a health orb because I took that much damage. Yes, I'm going to stagger and mitigate that and get healed up afterwards, but because I took that damage before, then I'm going to spawn a health orb. So the tooltip is a little misleading. It's not really a chance to spawn. It just seems like a chance to spawn because, it takes into account everything before your mitigations. So you're going to regularly spawn healing orbs throughout the fight. You can obviously use those to heal yourself up, and you can use Expel Harm to soak them all in at the same time and get a big, nice heal. Now, Mastery Elusive Brawler, we did talk about this shortly before, but just to reiterate, it's basically a stacking dodge chance, so that every time that you get a stack of this, you have increased dodge, increased dodge, increased dodge. Now, once you actually dodge the attack, then it's going to reset back down to 0, and you're going to have no extra dodge. You're just going to be stuck with your baseline. For me, it's 20%, right? Now, what's interesting about this is that you might have, let's say, 51 stacks. Now, that's outlandish. You're never going to have that. But let's say you have 51 stacks of Elusive Brawler. So you have like a 10 million% dodge chance, right? It doesn't matter if you have 10 million% dodge chance or 100% dodge chance. You're only going to dodge one more attack. It doesn't bleed over to the next one. So as soon as you dodge one attack, it's going to get reset. So you have 50,000 stacks, it's going to go back down to 0 once you dodge something. So that you need to keep in mind, but it's really powerful anyway. We mitigate so much damage by dodging, and of course we already talked about stagger. So that kind of wraps up the spellbook. I hope I talked about everything correctly, and I hope I was able to help you guys out. But we're going to go ahead and head into the artifact section right now, I think. But either way, I'll see you guys over there in a second. Okay, so now we're going to be going into the artifact section, and I'm not going to tell you guys exactly how to path your artifact weapon, because with Artifact Knowledge 40, it's so fast anyway that it doesn't really matter which ones you put in first. If you would really like to know, you can click in the top right section of the screen right now. It's going to link you to a video that I have made going over all of the paths, so you can go ahead and watch that if you'd like. But I'm going to be going over certain traits and relics that are most important to us. So first things first, Potent Kick. Since Ironskin Brew has a base has a duration cap of 3 times its base duration, then that means it's 8 seconds, which includes this potent kick. 8 seconds times 3, which is 24. If you are having just like trouble like crazy, you cannot keep Iron Skin Brew up 100% of the time, or you just simply can't grab a hold of hot-blooded relics for defensiveness, then Potent Kick is a viable option, right? I would suggest if you're having problems with Iron Skin Brew, just go ahead and keep playing the spec, and eventually you will learn and get used to using your brews so you have 100% uptime without having to dump more relics into this trait, because I would advise against putting this like any relics in this trait, but if you're trying to go pure defensive and you can't get any hot-bloodeds, then just try and get potent kicks. Doesn't matter the item level of the relic, just try and get potent kicks, right? But again, I would highly advise against it. It's not that good of a relic. Now, another thing, overflow. Now, some people might mention this to you because of how the 2-set works, how that turtle build works in the talent section I'm going to talk about with Gift of the Mists. There might be some questions of, is overflow good? It's not. You can dump relics into this if you'd like, but you're just going to be gimping yourself. It's not a good trait to put relics in. Do not do it. I'm just letting you guys know, but just don't do it. All right. The only traits that you should concern yourself with as far as relics are Facepalm and Hot-Blooded. But before I get into those, the other trait that's really important for us is Obstinate Determination. This basically defines corner tanking. If you guys have heard about corner tanking, or you guys have heard of it but you don't know what it is, corner tanking basically is like you put yourself against the wall and you just automatically drink up your orbs and you're basically invincible, right? If you'd like to know more, you can go ahead and click in the top right section of the screen again, and it'll take you to another video of a full guide that I did for exactly what corner tanking is and how to do it. So you guys can go ahead and look at that resource there if you'd like. Other than that, the only traits that you should ever concern yourself with for Brewmaster are Facepalm and Hot-Blooded. Reason being is because Hot-Blooded, even though it got nerfed with this recent patch, it is still by far the best trait for defensive purposes. It is 1% damage reduction per rank, and also Facepalm is 10% more chance for your Tiger Palm to do 300% more damage, per rank. So the defensive gains are definitely clear and the offensive gains are definitely clear on Facepalm. Now, a lot of people might be starting to switch over from having 3 out of 3 Hot-Blooded to having 3 out of 3 Facepalm. Some people might have a mix, kind of like I do. But most people might be going for Facepalm because the defensive and the DPS benefits from Facepalm pretty much outweigh the defensive benefits that you get from Hot-Blooded. Now, you kind of have to argue to yourself, is 3% damage reduction and a slight extra DPS benefit from Breath of Fire, is that worth the amount of astronomical damage that you're going to be getting from having 3 out of 3 Facepalm? If it is, then go ahead and go for Hot-Blooded. If it's not, and you'd rather go for more DPS-oriented playstyle, then go ahead and start dumping some stuff into Facepalm. Now, the only problem, though, is that Facepalm relics are very, very scarce. Sometimes they come up once in a blue moon on a world quest, so if they come up, definitely do those, because if they Titan Forge, then it's worth it. Any Facepalm relic at 870 item level is worth it. 870 or above, for sure. However, if you'd like to know where to get Facepalm relics, you can go ahead and only get them from Mythic Pluses. No raids offer these relics, so Mythic Pluses is what you're going to have to start spamming. So if you do Eye of Ajara, you can get an Iron relic. If you do Halls of Valor, you can get a Storm relic, and if you do Neltharion's Lair, you can get a Life relic. So basically, Eye of Ajara, Halls of Valor, Neltharion's Lair are your go-tos to try and get your 3 out of 3 Facepalm. Otherwise, you just kind of have to get lucky with relinquished tokens or world quests that pop up. If you'd like to go for some Hot-Bloodeds, then there's plenty of resources to get these. So there's 2 of them available in Black or Cold, a Life and a Storm relic. There's 1 of them available in Neltharion's Lair, which is an Iron relic. There's 2 of them in Lower Karazhan for a Life and a Storm relic. There's 1 available in Emerald Nightmare, which is an Iron relic. There's 1 available in Nighthold, which is a Storm and Iron relic. And I also believe that there's 1 off of Sisters of the Moon in Tomb of Sargeras, although I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is. But basically, there is a huge abundance of Hot-Blooded relics out there, but just only 3 that are within reasonable farming methods to get Facepalm. So that's kind of where it is. You go ahead and make your list there, but yeah, so Facepalms are the only ones that you want for DPS. Hot-Blooded are the only ones that you want for defensive purposes. Don't really concern yourself with Potent Kick, and just do not put anything into Overflow. All right, so now we're going to head into the talent section. So basically what I'm going to be doing is running through what each talent does really quickly and then saying kind of like what is the best talent in that row and then also for what situation. So row 15, if you want to do more AoE damage, AoE healing, go for Chi Burst. If you want to do more single target stuff, go for Eye of the Tiger. Chi Wave isn't that great, so just kind of stay away from it. So for single target, Eye of the Tiger, and for AoE, Chi Burst. Now, row 30 doesn't really matter. A lot of people tend to lean towards Chi Torpedo. I do too, but really it honestly doesn't matter. It's purely preferential. Now, Light Brewing is decent, and it's okay for brand new players, brand new tanks, or brand new Brewmasters. So if you literally do not know exactly what you're doing, if you can't even figure out how Stagger works, how to properly do your rotation, anything, and you're just trying to make it as simple as possible so you can learn the spec, then light brewing is acceptable and it's okay. But just know that the faster you get away from light brewing and the faster you start to learn Black Ox Brew, the better you will be as a Brewmaster tank. Now, Gift of the Mist has been kind of a joke talent for the entirety of the Legion expansion. It just does not provide nearly enough benefit that these two bring with the amount of brews that is capable of them. However, now, because Iron Skin Brew has this 24-second duration that we talked about earlier, light brewing is even worse, and Gift of the Mist has actually come up in value a little bit because of our 2 and 4 set. So this has a pretty important part in a turtle build that I'm going to be talking about later in the video, in the talent section. However, just know that this is a bad talent. Light brewing is also a bad talent unless you're a new player or whatever that I had mentioned. So basically, as you can tell, Black Ox Brew is by far the best talent on the row. It is a 1.5 minute cooldown. It refills your entire energy bar and it refills your entire charges of Iron Skin Brew and Purifying Brew. So you just cannot get any better than this. It is a cooldown, so you do have to manage it. And then on top of that, it is a brew which is reduced by Keg Smash and Tiger Palm. So it's not really a 1.5 minute cooldown. So you kind of have to be a little bit more flexible about how often you can press this. But as long as you're playing correctly and you're playing, to the best of your ability, Black Ox Brew is by far the best talent in this row. Now, row 60. This is a decent row, although, we'll talk about it. So, Ring of Peace. It's okay for PvP, I've heard. I don't do PvP, so I don't really know exactly. But it's okay for something like Necrotic, and it's okay for something like Sanguine in Mythic Pluses. The reason why is because if there's a mob sitting in the Sanguine puddle and he's just casting and he's not moving, then you can just put Ring of Peace on him. It'll push him out of the Sanguine puddle, and then you're good to go. Additionally, if you're trying to run away from some pack of mobs in Necrotic trying to reset your stacks, you can just put Ring of Peace on the ground and then just stand in it, and then you should be safe until your stacks fall off. Very, very easy. Outside of that, there's not much use out of this, especially in raids. It's really hard to get ads to move somewhere. So yeah. So Leg Sweep, you guys all know what this does. It's a 5-second stun, AoE stun. It's very, very simple to use, very easy to understand, very strong in Mythic Pluses. Not that great in raids because there's not a lot of things you can stun, but when you can, then Leg Sweep's pretty powerful. Now, Black Ox statue. This guy is kind of just called Dave in the Brewmaster community. So we got little Dave here that's summoned. He's our Black Ox statue. Basically, what he does is he pulses AoE aggro, AoE threat in a 30-yard radius. So if you see all these like NPCs down here, these friendly players, if they were enemies and they were within a 30-yard radius of my statue, then my statue would already start taunting them, aggroing them towards him, and they'll start attacking the statue. However, Dave has got a big amount of health. He's got 3.6 million health. He's got half my health bar, basically. He's pretty powerful. So he can take some hits and he can take a beating, right? Now, the cool thing about the Ox statue is that you can target Dave, right? And then you can taunt him. And like Brewmaster is one of the only tanks that has this, is an AoE taunt. So all the targets within 10 to 15 yard radius, I think it is, will automatically be taunted to you. So now all of a sudden, all the mobs that Dave had aggro of, now you have aggro of. So it's pretty powerful. On top of that, the Monk Taunt is a 50% movement speed increase as well for the enemies. So what you can do is you can do an AoE taunt and just reposition all the ads extremely fast, right? If there's a bunch of ads over there that you want to pull to you really quickly, pull them all with Dave, get close, and then taunt the statue, and you're good to go. And then now all of a sudden, all the mobs are on you, and everything's fine. Now, it's pretty hard to actually taunt and target the statue in the middle of a fight without having some sort of macro or anything. So I'm going to put my macro that I use down in the description below, and it has a shift modifier, so it's really easy to use and understand. But basically, if I have taunt on T, right, and basically it's just going to taunt my target. But if I press Shift T then it's going to taunt the statue. So kind of simple to understand. Now, this is really good for raids because it's able to get all the mobs that happen to spawn from a raid fight. It's going to take them off your healers, take them off your DPS because Dave will have aggro of them. And then on top of that, it's really good for skittish. This is by far the best talent for skittish in Mythic Plus because it just is so much aggro. Now, skittish is a little bit easier to deal with because we're doing more damage and everything, so leg sweep might be fine. But if you're having any AoE problems in threat generation, then just go for the statue and start to AoE taunt it basically on cooldown. Now, row 75, row 90, and row 100, these are the most important rows for Brewmaster Monk. They kind of define what you're trying to do and how you're going to play. So row 75, Healing Elixir is pretty decent. It's 2 charges, a 30-second recharge, each one of them, and it's basically just more sustain, more self-healing. Every time you drink one of these, it's a 15% heal from your maximum health, or if you drop below 35% HP, then you just automatically drink one if there's one available. So what's cool about this is that it's a nice gentle mix between an on-use skill ability and a passive. So you could just wait till you're up to 35 and then it just drinks, and then that's awesome. But really, all this really has a lot of value for is either farm content, low-level dungeons, world quests, anything that the healing that this talent can provide you. The healing outweighs the defensive benefits from Dampen Harm and Mystic Vitality. This is a better choice. So I would say possibly anything below maybe a +7. Healing elixirs can be viable for, and then of course the world content, world quests, and all that good stuff. Farm raids, transmog runs, all that. Now, Mystic Vitality, we did talk about earlier that Stagger is not as effective against magic damage. It only works at a 40% effectiveness. So if you have some pretty heavy magic damage, something like Court of Stars or whatever, where there's just a lot of magic damage that you have to mitigate, Mystic Vitality is the way to go. There's not many fights in Tomb of Sargeras that, prefer this over another thing. I think Sisters of the Moon is a pretty decent one, but Dampen Harm tends to win in most situations for Tomb of Sargeras. So if something is primarily magic damage in a fight, Mystic Vitality can definitely work for you. Now, Dampen Harm is just an extra cooldown, so because of how everything works in Tomb, if you want the cooldown, go for Dampen Harm. If there's not a lot of magic damage in the fight, go for Dampen Harm. Pretty simple. It's a 2-minute cooldown, reduces all damage you take by 20% to 50% for 10 seconds, larger attacks being reduced by more. So if you're tanking something like Kill Jaden, right, and you're doing the Fell Claws, then if you use Dampen Harm, you're guaranteed that 50% damage reduction because it's hitting you so hard. However, if you're also hitting Fell Claws, but then there's adds that come in or slight magic damage, then you're only going to get maybe that 20% reduction because it doesn't really hurt that much, right? But maybe let's say you're tanking something in between, like, an Armageddon that doesn't really hurt too much, but it doesn't hurt too little either. You might get a variable, like let's say 37% reduction. So just know that there's a variable amount of reduction depending on how hard you're getting hit. But basically, if you need the extra cooldown, go Dampen Harm. If you need a little bit more survivability in the form of healing with low-level stuff, go Healing Elixir. And then all magic damage, basically Mystic Vitality can work for you. Now, row 90. Just to preface before I say anything else, Rushing Jade Wind is by far the best talent in this row. It has a lot of extra utility and a lot of extra damage compared to the other 2 talents. So just letting you guys know, the faster you learn Rushing Jade Wind, the more DPS you're going to do, hands down. Plus, it also adds a GCD to our rotation, like further fleshing it out. So it's really good. It's really good, guys. Definitely learn how to use Rushing Jade Wind. Now, Invoke Nizao. If you guys have ever seen a Windwalker Monk bring out Zune or Zwen the White Tiger, then basically this is our version of that. We summon our boy Nizao, and he's going to do some just angry stuff and start attacking things and taunting stuff. So pretty awesome. He doesn't do as much damage as Rushing Jade Wind or Special Delivery, but he's still a pretty good pick if you just want a cool cooldown, right? Also, because he can taunt things and tank them for you, he's a very good and viable option for the mage tank tower challenge because he can taunt the first boss and basically give you free DPS, and then he can also taunt the second boss when he comes up, and then you're good to go. You basically get a free win, GG. So he's really cool. I like him. I don't want to use him though because Rushing Jade Wind is just better, but he's still pretty decent pick overall. You're not going to lose that much DPS. Now, Special Delivery, if you just want to turn your brain off, you don't really want to worry about managing the cooldown of Rushing Jade Wind, Special Delivery is pretty decent. So this gives your brews an offensive capability to them. So drinking Iron Skin Brew or Purifying Brew has a 100% chance to toss a keg in the air, and then after 3 seconds it does some damage. So basically every time you drink a Purifying or Iron Skin Brew, you get a weaker keg smash after 3 seconds. Not that great. It doesn't do as much damage as Rushing Jadewind, but it does do more damage than Invoke Nizao. So definitely take your pick here. Just know that Rushing Jadewind is by far the best talent here. Now, on top of that, Elusive Dance is the worst talent in the row. Don't pick it. It takes very, very special circumstances and a very, very special player in order to actually pull this off. And even then, they can only really pull it off in dungeons. In raids, this has no place for. It is not good enough for raids. So just kind of push it out of your mind. So then the only really talents that we have here are High Tolerance and Blackout Combo. So if you guys know about Blackout Combo, it's very, very high skill cap. You know, it's really hard to pull off if you don't know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, then I recommend just using High Tolerance, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're actually losing more stuff, you know, more benefits than if you just switch to High Tolerance. So basically High Tolerance is just the tanky talent. If you want to be more survivable, if you want to tank things better, then go ahead and you run High Tolerance. It increases your stagger amount by 10%. So instead of having a baseline 40% stagger, you're going to have a baseline 50% stagger. And then on top of that, you're going to be getting haste depending on your current level of stagger. So if you're at green stagger, you're going to be getting 8% more haste. If you're at yellow stagger, you're going to be getting 12% more haste. And if you're at red stagger, you're going to be getting 15% more haste, the full thing. So really don't concern yourself about the level of haste that you can pick up from this. Just know that if you want to be more tanky and things are really hurting, then just pick High Tolerance and you're good to go. Now, Blackout Combo, I did mention, was pretty difficult to use if you don't know what you're doing, but it tends to be probably the better talent on the row because it's very versatile and also is an extreme DPS gain. So real quick rundown, what does Blackout Combo do? You need to pair Blackout Strike with another ability. So when you use Blackout Strike, you're going to get a buff that is going to empower the next ability that you cast. So if you do Tiger Palm, it's going to do double damage, or I think quadruple damage is 200%. Either way, it's going to do 200% more damage. If you use it on Breath of Fire is going to be reduced by a 3-second cooldown. Keg Smash is going to reduce the remaining cooldown of your brews by an additional 2 seconds, so a full 6 seconds. Iron Skin Brew is going to pause your stagger dot for 3 seconds. And Purifying Brew is going to grant you an elusive brawler stack. So basically, do not ever combo Blackout Strike with Purifying Brew. Don't ever combo it with Keg Smash. And don't ever combo it with Breath of Fire. Those are the 3 worst combos that you can do. You always want to be comboing it with either Tiger Palm or Iron Skin Brew. Now, mind you, 99% of the time, you should be comboing this with Blackout Strike because the DPS gains are just immense and it's probably the most popular rotation anyway to get everything done. So comboing this with Tiger Palm is the way to go anyway. Now, you can have some defensive benefits with Iron Skin Brew. That doesn't mean to always pair your Blackout Strike with Iron Skin Brew if you want to be as tanky as possible, because that's just not how it works. So real quick rundown, if you're going to be doing something like Kill Jaden, right, and you don't want to do High Tolerance because you just want the extra DPS from Blackout Combo, but you're also having trouble with Fell Claws, what you can do is, if you time this right, you can use Blackout Strike and then use Iron Skin Brew right before he hits you with his 4th Fell Claw, right? Because 4th and 5th is where the damage really comes in. So you would Iron Skin Brew right before the 4th Fell Claw, which means that you start stagger pausing before the 4th one. So when the 4th one comes in, all that extra stagger is going into this dot. And because it's not ticking down, it's not losing any extra damage. So it's building up this huge, huge dot that's going to tick for you after the stagger pause is gone. And if you timed it correctly, I believe you're also going to be able to get the 5th Fell Claw into that stagger dot, right? So what you have to remember is, during that time, you're not going to be taking any extra stagger damage, right? So you're going to be pretty, tanky, at least for those 3 seconds. However, just know that after that's done, you're going to be getting ticked really hard for stagger after that pause is finished. So what you can do and what you should do is, after those 3 seconds are paused, and you have this huge stagger buildup, then just purify it off right away. Right before the stagger pause wears off, just go ahead and purify it away. And then that's a ginormous amount extra purify that you wouldn't have gotten if you had just purified regularly without that stagger pause. So definitely it's one way to go about being defensive, but it's not the only way to do it. And definitely 99% of the time, like I had mentioned, you're going to be comboing Tiger Palm anyway. So if you want to do more DPS, go for Blackout Combo. If you want to be more tanky, go for High Tolerance. Now, kind of the standard rating build that you're going to see for Brewmasters that run Tomb of Sargeras is going to be this. I have the Tiger for the single target fights, whatever, row 30, Black Ox Brew, row 45, the Black Ox statue for row 60, Dampen Harm or Mystic Vitality, sometimes depending what they want to do. And then row 90 is Rushing Jadewind and then Blackout combo. Some of them might run High Tolerance because they don't want to deal with Blackout combo, but just either one of these is fine. You have a little bit of variable, so you can switch these two, you can switch these two. You might even be able to switch these two depending on if you want to play it, poorly or not. But either way, this is kind of the common build. Now, there is another build that I had mentioned, and you might hear, every now and then, maybe on Peak of Serenity or on the Brewmaster Discord, of a turtle build. So basically, the idea of the turtle build is to be as tanky as possible, hence the name turtle, right? So what you want to do is you need 3 important things. You need High Tolerance, you need Gift of the Mists, and you need your 4 set from Tomb of Sargeras, right? Now, the main ideology of the turtle build is to get a lot of extra healing from your Ox Orbs, dump all of your brews into Ironskin Brew, and purify everything with your orbs. So how does that happen, right? Quick rundown. I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible. So your 2 set, every time you drink a brew, you have a 40% chance to generate Gift of the Ox healing spheres. So by default, with the 2 set equipped, you're going to be generating a lot more orbs, right? And then also with Gift of the Mist, you're also going to be generating a lot more orbs. So outside of the default amount of orbs that you would get from regularly tanking, you're going to have a lot more from this talent and from this 2 set. So that's a lot of extra healing. And then also crit is very valuable, especially if you're trying to run this build, because you're going to get that extra Celestial Fortune healing from these, right? Now, because you do not have Black Ox Brew, you're going to be at a severe lack of brews in general. So you're going to be scrambling to try and keep up Ironskin Brew, okay? Now, because you don't have these brews and you're trying to scramble for Ironskin Brew, and Ironskin Brew takes priority over Purifying Brew, that means that you're barely going to have any chances, if ever, to purify at all. All right. Now, how do we make up for this brew deficit? Well, we run High Tolerance. Not only are we being extremely tanky with this, because that's the whole idea of this build, but we're getting the increased haste benefits from this spell as well. So the extra haste is going to give us faster energy regen, which is going to give us faster brew cooldown. And because of the extra energy and the cooldowns on Keg Smash and Tiger Palm and all that, then we're going to be getting more brews. And then more brews equals more Ox Orbs from this. And then more Ox Orbs equals more purifying because of our 4 set. So that's kind of the whole idea. We want to purify as much as possible from our 4 set. We want to heal as much as possible from Gift of the Mist and the 2 set. And then we want to be as tanky as possible with High Tolerance. And we want to dump all of our brews as possible into Ironskin Brew. Now, some people think that this actually works pretty well. I've never tested it myself because, frankly, I don't think I need to, because I feel tanky enough without this. Also, the playstyle is kind of like a little shock to me. But yeah, this is a kind of maybe viable route. It's a very highly experimental build, but some people are running it and some people are liking it. Now, the people who don't like it, they might not enjoy using Gift of the Mists. So Black Ox Brew is an option, because yes, you might not be getting as many orbs with Gift of the Mists, but with Black Ox Brew, you're going to maintain a stable rotation because of the energy refill, right? And then you're also going to be having a stable amount of Ironskin Brew, so you're never going to drop that. And then on top of that, you could purify big hits that are necessary, like on Kill Jaden, that is so much damage that it's probably impossible to not purify that off and still be relatively okay health-wise. So Black Ox Brew is an okay alternative. Plus, the more brews that you get with Black Ox Brew, the more orbs you can probably spawn anyway with your 2 set. So they still kind of work in tandem, but just know that the default turtle build does consist using of Gift of the Mists. You can opt out into using Black Ox Brew, but just know that this is the build, and with your 4 set, this is what you need to have for this turtle build. So that's basically what it is. So we kind of went over the turtle build. We went over the standard build that you're going to see a lot of people running in Tomb of Sargeras. And then we kind of went over every single other talent and telling guys what is good in what situation. So I hope I was able to help you here. All right, so now we're going to be headed into the stat priority, how you're going to want to gear yourself and all that good stuff. So the first thing we have to understand is that item level usually wins in almost all circumstances. If it's a plus 10 item level upgrade, it's going to be an upgrade regardless of the secondary stats. You know, and anecdotal evidence is that I had a 915 belt equipped that had crit and mastery on them, so arguably much better stats than haste and versatility. But this belt that I have is 930, so the 15 item level difference between those two gear items, it definitely made it better for me to have the 930 equipped because of the more armor, agility, and stamina. You know, so that's why I went ahead and equipped it. So we really need to understand that item level wins in most situations. It doesn't win when it comes to jewelry, which is necks, rings, and also trinkets sometimes. But basically for rings and necks, you want to just get the best combination of secondary stats, which is usually going to be crit and mastery, at the highest item level you can obtain. Now, another thing we need to know is that our 4 set from Tomb of Sargeras is extremely powerful. It is a lot of extra healing, and then with our crit being so high, we're going to get a lot of extra bonus healing on our 2 set, and then our 4 set is so much extra damage reduction from our constant purifying of Stagger because of all these extra orbs. It's going to be really good for tanking and a must-have for mythic progression. So we need to know that our item level wins in most situations, and then our 4 set usually takes priority over everything else too. So the most useful stat priority is going to be item level over everything, then it's going to be the 4 set after that, then it's going to be crit equals mastery, because both of those are pretty good. Some people want more crit, some people want more mastery, and then after that you're going to be going for versatility, and then after that you're going to be going for haste. Now, I'm going to be talking about each stat and why we go for those and why I put them in this priority. So Critical Strike gives you a chance to double damage and double healing, and then on top of that, when we talked about Celestial Fortune earlier, we have a bonus chance to be healed for another 65% of the heal that we just received. So it's very good for the extra healing, for the good pickup stat. On top of that, it pairs really well with our 2 set from Tomb of Sargeras. Now, mastery, we talked about this earlier as well, is that stacking dodge chance. So because most of the damage that we take from bosses and raids nowadays is from boss melee attacks, so if we can happen to dodge most of them, you know, 83% of Kil'jaeden's auto attacks I did, then we're obviously going to be taking a lot less damage overall, so we're going to be very tanky. And then on top of that, mastery increases your attack power, so both crit and mastery are very good DPS wise and extremely good defensive wise in this tier. And then versatility didn't really lose, its power. It didn't get nerfed or anything, but we just have more defensive benefit from mastery and crit now. So versatility is just a superpower stat. We do more damage and healing, and we take less damage. So we want to have a good amount of versatility because we are a tank, so we really benefit from that less damage taken. Now, haste is a very wonky stat. It's our worst stat offensively and defensively because brews aren't the biggest thing anymore for our gameplay because Iron Skin Brew has a 24-second cap. So no matter what, if you have 10,000% haste and you're getting a brew like every 5 seconds, it really doesn't matter because you're only going to have a cap of 24 seconds on your Iron Skin Brew anyway. So that was a big nerf to haste in general, defensively. And then offensively, our Blackout Strike has a 3-second cooldown. It's like a flat, it's not modified by haste. So haste did drop in value for that, so our DPS is a little bit lower because of it. But in general, with the more item level and stuff, we're going to be doing more DPS. However, haste again is really bad because point for point, you're going to get more offensive and defensive value from any other stat, literally any other stat. So if I drop 1,000 haste, if I drop 1,000 stats into haste, I'm going to be getting more defensive and offensive benefit if I dropped 1,000 stat into crit, mastery, or versatility, or even if I just split them evenly, I'm going to be getting more value out of those than I will for haste. Another thing why haste is so bad, and it's kind of important to understand, is that depending on your haste value, you're going to be getting a certain rotational benefit from it. So the most popular one is going to be the 3 Tiger Palm rotation, and I will be talking about that in the rotation section, so definitely keep an eye out. But the 3 Tiger Palm rotation basically means that you're going to be getting 3 Tiger Palms in between your Keg Smash casts. So within that 7+ second Keg Smash window, you have to be able to put 3 Tiger Palms in there, 3 Blackout Strikes in there, because mostly you're going to be using Blackout combo, and then on top of that you need to fill in 100% uptime on Breath of Fire and 100% uptime on Rushing Jade Wind. And on top of that, maintain your Iron Skin Brew so that you can actually tank things. So it's a little complicated, and that's why the 3 Tiger Palm rotation is, wouldn't be the most popular. But the 3 Tiger Palm rotation really only works if you are not at 14.3% haste. And the reason why 14.3% haste is because at that exact haste value, then your Keg Smash is going to have a perfect 7-second cooldown, which allows you just enough GCDs to go for a 2 Tiger Palm rotation in between your Keg Smash casts. And if you can probably tell, 2 Tiger Palm rotation means that you're going to be fitting 2 Tiger Palms and 2 Blackout Strikes in between your Keg Smashes, along with maintaining Iron Skin Brew, Breath of Fire, and Rushing Jadewind. So we will talk all about that way more in the rotation section, but just know that 14.3% haste is kind of like the golden area where you want to be in, but because it's so hard to get to that exact value, then most people should tend to stay away from it because it's really hard to achieve. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here. This is my personal opinion. Because of how server lag is, because of hardware lag where you press number 2 and it takes like an extra, third of a second to actually register number 2, then you will have a variable of how that 2 Tiger Palm rotation can actually flow and be executed. So I'm going to go ahead and say that between 14.1%-ish haste and 14.5% haste is kind of a good area to be in for you to start practicing the 2 Tiger Palm rotation. So again, I'm going to talk about that later, but just know that's what I would go ahead and say is a comfortable spot to be in to learn the 2 Tiger Palm rotation. Outside of that, you want to stay for the 3 Tiger Palm rotation. Additionally, you want to be at around 8% haste to 11-ish% haste, because between there, you're going to have just enough energy with your stave off procs and all that to maintain your brew uptime and also to maintain a steady flow of your rotation if you're using Black Ox Brew, because you're going to get the energy refills off of this. So between 8 and 11% is viable and, definitely recommended. Now, between 12 and 13%, basically, more than 11% and less than 14%, that window there is kind of a wonky period I've found personally, because usually my Rushing Jadewind, my Keg Smash, and my Blackout Strike cooldowns all come out in variable different cycles. So sometimes my Keg Smash comes off at the same time as my Blackout Strike. Sometimes my Rushing Jadewind is about to come off the same time as, this other ability. So it's really hard to get a perfect rotation in that haste area. So I would definitely recommend to stay away from it. So try and stay low enough of 8% haste to 11% haste, or if you can, just go full Mongo into the 14.3% haste and getting that 2 Tiger Palm rotation down. So haste, yes, it's a very complicated stat, but the main gist that you can take away from this is stay lower on the haste side unless you can definitely min-max to get 14.3%. If you can stay low on your haste, then you should be good overall and just dump the rest of your stats into literally anything else, crit, mastery, or versatility. All right, so how do we go about gem and enchanting? What type of trinkets do we equip? That's the question right here. So for your enchants, for your neck piece, just go for Hidden Satyr. It's a free like 2 to 3% of your DPS, so just equip this. Don't even worry about Heavy Hide. It's not as great as you might think it is. Just go for the Hidden Satyr. For your cloaks, go put 200 agility and call it a day very easily. For your gems and your ring enchants, what you should do is just go for whatever stat that you want the most of. If you like having crit, or you happen to be a little bit lower on the crit side, go ahead and put some more crit enchants and gems in there. Same thing for mastery and versatility. Stay away from haste if you can, but if you need a little bit more because you just happen to have a lot, like very little haste from your gear, then just go for haste in general. Remember, stay above 8%, below 11%. Also, versatility is a little bit of a different animal because it's harder to grab the versatility on your gear. Sometimes you can get lucky and have like a good amount like I do, but it's a little bit harder to grab on your gear. So in general, I would recommend gemming and enchanting for versatility, but you can really just go for whatever stat that you want and you should be fine. Now, also the 200 agility gem, you might see some brewmasters running this and you might be thinking, wait, isn't that just like a DPS thing? Like, shouldn't I just, if I'm not playing a Windwalker, then I should stay away from the agility gems, right? No, you definitely want to have one of these if you can afford it. Reason being is because it's going to increase your base dodge amount by just a tad bit, but still it's very good. And then on top of that, the extra agility is going to give you more attack power, which means more DPS and also more self-healing from your Ox Orb. So you definitely want to grab one of these. You can only have one agility gem on at a time, so you have to be wary about where you put it, but just know that having one of these definitely helps you out in the long run. Now, what are we going to talk about for trinkets? So let's start off with defensive trinkets. Defensive trinkets are a little bit different because they kind of just work off of stat sticks in general. Stat sticks are your best bet in every situation. If you don't know what to do for trinkets, just put on a stat stick. Now, what is a stat stick? A stat stick is just a trinket that has agility on it and a secondary stat. So if you look at this Eye of Gorm, it's 890, it's got some agility, it's got a good amount of crit. I also happen to have a gem on it, but that's just luck of the draw. So you want to have a stat stick in your inventory. You want to have at least 2 or 3, just so you can switch around depending on the fight, what you want to gear more towards. Also, other defensive trinkets, Archimonde's Hatred Reborn, we've talked about this. It's really good for the absorb shield. It's really good for the DPS as well. So it's a good mix of both stat stick and on use effect. Now, a couple other things. This is a trinket in its own caliber. This is so far above and beyond the rest of the trinkets when it comes to defensive capabilities and defensive benefit. Darkmoon deck Immortality is uncontested when it comes to physical damage mitigation. It is the best physical damage mitigation trinket in all of Legion for every single tank. It is the best. If you can grab one of these ASAP. If you don't have one yet, what are you doing? You need to get one right now. The only issue though is that because these are so good, they're going to run you a pretty high cost. I've heard some people say that on their servers, it's going to cost them like 175k just to grab the trinket alone, because then you also have to buy the 10 Obliterums in order to upgrade it to item level 900. So I would definitely try and grab one if you can afford it, but one way to circumvent that cost is to just buy the cards individually. So the pre-built versions of these Darkmoon decks are going to run you up a high cost, but what you can do is buy the cards individually. I think there's 8 cards that you need to get before you can craft one of them. Buy them from the auction house, then have a friendly inscriptionist person just craft the deck for you. You tip them some gold and you should be on your way. It's going to run you a very low cost, but it could be a little bit more difficult to grab these because the cards aren't always on the auction house. So that's one way to go about it. But the reason why Darkmoon deck is so good is because the amount of armor that you get is just passive armor. It's so good. It's like 10% flat damage mitigation. It is amazing. You definitely want to have this on if you can. If you're really starting to get hurt on these bosses, then just slap one of these on and you should be good to go. Also, talking about tomb trinkets, some people are wondering which ones are good, which ones should I worry about. Feverish Carapace is an easy one to get. It's from the first boss. You can get a high item level version of this. The amount of agility that you can get on these is so high that they might be worth the equip for a DPS trinket. However, the equip on it says taking damage has a chance to blank. Any trinket that has that sort of wording, that effect on them, is bad for Brewmasters, because since we dodge a lot and also since Stagger doesn't proc that equip, then we automatically proc less these type of effects than other tanks do. So strictly Feverish Carapace and other trinkets like that are mostly just used for the stat that comes on them. Leviathan's Hunger, I've seen some Brewmasters equip this. I don't really know why. It's got haste on it. Of course, we don't want haste, but I can see the on-use effect being decent, because since most of the damage that we take is from a dot from Stagger, then the high hot that you get from this healing trinket is pretty decent, but I would stay away from this. It doesn't seem that good to me in general. Maiden of Vigilance, this one, not that great, just don't worry about it. Reliquary of the Damned, I've seen this on some Brewmasters as well. The immense amount of stamina is nice. It helps for, you know, big attacks where you just need to help mitigate that. We don't really need stamina as a monk because we don't get one shot, but the real reason why some people are equipping this is because of the on-use effect. It's like a gigantic shield. It's like a 3.5 million damaging shield. This is also subject to our Celestial Fortune procs, so you can get an even bigger shield off of this trinket. So if you want to run a little bit more of an on-use effect, you know, you want to mitigate something like Harjatan or whatever, then you can equip this, but again, I would try and stay away from it. It's not that great. It's not that good of a defensive trinket. It's not that good of a stat stick, of course. It's only got stamina on it. So again, try and stay away from this if you can. If you got nothing else, this is a pretty good option. And then the Kill Jaden trinket. Some people are wondering, is this good for us? You know, Fortifying Brew is such a great cooldown. Don't we want to have more of this? Not really. The reason being is because, again, there's no agility on it, so it's hard to justify as a DPS trinket. And then on top of that, the on-use effect, while it looks good on paper, doesn't really give you that many extra Fortifying Brews, and you should just be comfortable with having one Fortifying Brew per fight anyway, though you don't really need this. So again, I would stay away from this if possible. So that's the Tomb Trinkets. Other trinkets that are worthy of mention is the Arcano Crystal. It's a good defensive trinket because of all the secondary stats that it has. It's got no agility, so again, pretty hard to justify for a DPS trinket, but if you got a high item level one, then you can definitely try and equip it, and you should be good to go in basically every situation. Another thing is special ones like Eye of Command. This is a really good stat stick because it's got more critical strike on it than an 880 stat stick would have. You know, like I have an 880 Eye of Command. If I had an 880 stat stick, then I can get more crit off of this one than I would from the stat stick. So it's really nice, although it's hard to justify on AoE encounters. So definitely worry about the effect there. Another one for defensive is Writhing Heart of Darkness. This is very good for defensive purposes. It's hard to get a high item level because you need to just spam run Dark Heart Thicket and Mythic Pluses, but if you want a pretty good trinket just for defensive purposes, then you can go ahead and grab one of these and you should be okay. So I think we've covered everything. We want to grab stat sticks as much as possible. We also want to use Writhing Heart of Darkness or Eye of Command, Arcano Crystals if we have good item levels of those. We need to have a Dark Moon deck, especially in Tomb of Sargeras, since a lot of the damage is physical damage. And then on top of that, our legendaries are really good also with Archimonde Hatred Reborn and Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish. So I believe that covers everything. If I've missed something, please just go ahead and look in the comments down below. All right, so now let's head into legendaries. So we have some more legendaries in the entire legendary pool now with 725. They added a couple more. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. In general, I'm going to talk quickly about each one of them and kind of go ahead and say which ones you would want to use for the most part. So Fundamental Observation takes in the head slot, and it says Zen Med has a 50% chance, 50% reduced cooldown, my bad, and is no longer canceled when you move or when you're hit by melee attacks. So Zen Meditation we were talking about before is a really big defensive cooldown for you guys. It's a 60% reduction for 8 seconds. It is a channeled ability, so you can't really do anything else. But now with this head, you're allowed to move around, which is really good actually. And then on top of that, melee attacks no longer cancel the channel. So now you could actually use this as a proper cooldown because it can mitigate melee attacks. However, just know that you can't cast Iron Skin Brew, you can't cast Keg Smash, so you're both losing on the Iron Skin Brew duration, so you better have enough to manage this channel, or you're losing out on DPS. So it's kind of good and bad, but either way, this is a situationally good defensive legendary for when you need that extra cooldown. Now, Pride Eyes in general, just a very good defensive legendary. It gives you a lot more effective health throughout the fight. It's got no armor, it has no agility on it, so it's not good for the DPS department. However, still very solid legendary. You can't go wrong with this one for sure. Stormstout's Last Gasp is one of the new ones that was added with 725, and it's basically, if you guys know about Lufa wrappings from the Bears and how good those are because it increases thrash damage, basically this is exactly the same thing. It increases Keg Smash damage by 25%. It doesn't increase the range of Keg Smash, but it gives us an additional charge. So what's cool about this is that not only does it change up your rotation a little bit because of the additional charge, but it's also very, very good for cleave and AoE DPS, especially in dungeons or, light cleave like Harjatan. So again, this is pure DPS legendary. There's not really a lot of defensive benefit outside the passive stats that you get. So you kind of want to make sure that you understand how you're using this and how that Keg Smash cycle rotation actually works. Now, I don't have these, so I can't demonstrate it for you, but I'm doing my best to talk about them in the rotation section. Salsalabim's Lost Tunic has been the best legendary by far throughout the entire expansion. It's not nearly as good anymore as it once was. However, the passive stats, I have it at 970. That is almost 500 armor. That is over 4,000 agility. It has so much armor, so much agility, so much stamina that it's really hard to pass up even defensively, right? So it's a pretty decent defensive legendary just because of the secondary stats, but it is by far the best offensive legendary. The extra DPS you get from reapplying Breath of Fire is more damage than the actual Breath of Fire dot that ticks over 15-20 seconds. So it's really good offensively. If you want to have this is honestly, I think, a pretty good overall legendary. I use this even for progression, and I'm doing pretty fine. So definitely a good pick for sure. Anvil Heart and Wrist Wraps, this just got technically nerfed a little bit because while we do dodge a lot more in this patch, it technically got a buff with the patch, but just recently with a hotfix with Exploding Keg, it's not that great anymore because now we don't have that flat 3-second dodge like we did before with the artifact ability. So especially in Mythic Pluses and in dungeons, you can't abuse this to like get a ton of brews out of nowhere. But either way, very solid legendary, of course. Brews aren't that important to our gameplay anymore because of the Iron Skin brew cap, and you can't really purify as often. So this helps out with a little bit of that depending, but on top of it, really more brews doesn't really equate to better defensive benefits. So it's decent, but situationally useful. It's a little bit of a flavor pick in my opinion. Synodaria, very good for progression because if you guys are doing less damage, then there's more time that the boss or the mobs are in a 90% health range, so you can do more DPS. On top of that, it's got a ton of crit, a ton of mastery, really solid stats for us this patch, so definitely a good one. Not the best, but a decent one for sure. Gaiplin's Soothing Sash, this definitely got a little bit of a hit because Purifying got nerfed this patch, and then also we can't Purify nearly as much anymore, but it's still got versatility, it's got a ton of mastery on it, very solid still defensively, good for Kill Jaden for sure, because you're clearing off so much Stagger that you're going to get a gigantic Purify heal anyway, so decent in situational, in different situations. Firestone Walkers, definitely the worst one out of the entire group. The crafted feet are better than the Firestone Walkers. So just really, if you get Firestone Walkers or it's the only one you have, just hope that you get another one quickly. Sentinel's Eternal Refuge. This is the crafted one. You guys should know what it is by now. It's really only good because it's got crit mastery on it and it's got 3 gem slots, so you can kind of put whatever you want there. Safu's Secret, pretty decent in dungeons, although the haste does tend to mess up our rotation sometimes, so I would be iffy on it. It's got like 3,000 crit though at 970, so very, very strong. However, that haste is a little worrisome. On top of that, it's got no agility, no armor, and, you know, like I said, the effect kind of messes up our rotation, so the pros might outweigh the cons that might outweigh the pros, so it's kind of up to you to decide, but there's definitely better legendaries out there. Now, Jewel of the Lost Abbey is extremely, extremely strong. It always has been. Right now, it is the best general purpose defensive legendary for the Brewmaster Monk. It's got a ton of crit, a ton of mastery, so our main stats that we want. On top of that, the extra stagger duration that we got out of this is extremely, extremely potent. So, of course, definitely a must-have, not a must-equip, because there's obviously different situational benefits that I talked about with these other ones, but still extremely solid. Soul of the Grandmaster is another legendary that was just added with this new patch. We get a bunch of crit, bunch of haste, bunch of mastery, so kind of iffy on the department. It's kind of like, you know, Pride As, where it's got all the stats on it. However, what this ring does actually allows you to have another talent on. So for Brewmasters, we get an extra Mystic Vitality. So that allows us to run Mystic Vitality because of the finger, and then also allows us to run Dampen Harm at the same time if we want the magic capabilities from Mystic Vitality and also the cooldown from Dampen Harm. So pretty strong for something maybe like Harjatan or Kill Jaden even to an extent. Or we can go Mystic Vitality and Healing Elixir for some easier dungeons or some general world quest content. We can go ahead and do that as well. Not the most potent of things. If this ring was out back in Nighthold, this would have been probably one of the best for sure. It would have definitely been on a contender with Jewel of the Lost Abbey because, you know, Mystic Vitality, Dampen Harm, that would have been amazing for Botanist. It would have been amazing for Gul'dan. You know, a bunch of different fights this could have been used on. Unfortunately, it wasn't there, so now it's just kind of mediocre. And then Archimonde's Hatred Reborn, the super trinket itself, we have almost 4,000 agility, versatility, and mastery. The on-use effect is a nice defensive cooldown with a good offensive benefit. So very strong and potent trinket for sure. Now, which ones are the best, you would say? Well, there's not really a best one except for, you know, certain situations that I can tell you. So like the best offensive legendary for sure is the chest. Hands down, the best offensive legendary is going to be the chest, followed closely by the shoulders or Archimonde's Hatred Reborn. For single target, the trinket tends to win. Also, it's got the defensive capabilities because of the 30% shield. So in more cases, this trinket is going to be better for raiding, but then if there's any sort of like regular cleave, like in Sisters of the Moon when the owl comes up, or in Harjatan with the extra adds Demonic Inquisition, Stormstout's Last Gasp is going to give you a lot of extra DPS because of the Keg Smash cleave. So you can run the chest and the shoulders for AoE, or the chest and the trinket for mostly single target. Now that's kind of offensive, but defensive benefits, like I said, Jewel of the Lost Abbey, very strong. It's our best best and our strongest defensive legendary for sure, but then also situationally beneficial are these other ones. So we've got Pride As, which is more effective health for something like Sisters of the Moon. It's very strong. Fundamental Observation is good if you need that extra cooldown. We also have the healing from Guy Plyn, pretty decent on Kill Jaden. We have the extra DPS and the leech from Sinidaria, and then we've also got other things like the extra cooldown on Archimonde's Hatred Reborn plus the DPS benefit from this. It's definitely different situations when it comes to what is the best defensively, what should I use for raiding. However, I can definitely tell you offensively, you're going to want to equip the chest and the shoulders for AoE or the chest and the trinket for single target. Alright, so we're going to start doing the rotation section now. So before I say anything, this might be a little bit confusing to some of you because it might be a little fast paced. There's also a lot of different things like there's 2 Tiger Palm, 3 Tiger Palm, there's Lust rotation, there's fillers, there's all these different things and wonky stuff that you can do. Some of you guys might not have the legendary chest, some of you guys might have the legendary shoulders, and it might be a little bit of everywhere. I'm going to try to do my best to cover everything. So the 3 Tiger Palm rotation is probably going to be the most popular one because not everybody is going to have the perfect amount of haste, right? They're not going to have the 14.3% haste, nothing around that. So most people will be running lower haste and then higher secondary stats. So the 3 Tiger Palm rotation basically consists of fitting in 3 Tiger Palms in between your Keg Smash casts. Right? So there's this window of opportunity before, in between Keg Smashes, where you need to get your 3 Tiger Palms, you need to get your 3 Blackout combos in order to prioritize the Tiger Palm, and then you also need to maintain your Breath of Fire uptime while also maintaining your Rushing Jade Wind uptime. So it's very basic pillars. You want to have Keg Smash cooldown, you want to have Breath of Fire, Rushing Jade Wind, and your 3 Tiger Palms, right? 4 basic pillars, not that hard to execute, but, you know, in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the battle, and then you might not be in range, it might be a little bit hard to keep everything in tune. Now, there's fillers that are going to be used with Blackout, Breath of Fire and Rushing Jade Wind, and then some other fillers where you can probably put in a Exploding Keg. You could also put in an Expel Harm. Of course, Expel Harm would take priority over the others because if you need the heal, you need the heal. In the end of the day, you are a tank. But just so you know, if you wanted to keep perfect rotational balance, you would find one of those GCD gaps where you can go ahead and use Expel Harm. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to say that the 3 Tiger Palm rotation is only ever more DPS if you have at least 1 Facepalm Relic. Most people are probably going to have at least 1. I know some people are still rocking the 3 Hot Bloodeds, which is fine. Just know that the 3 Tiger Palm rotation will not be doing more DPS if you do not have at least 1 Facepalm. So this is how you're going to run with it. So again, we're going to be having to maintain our Iron Skin Brew uptime because we are a tank, so we have to have that mitigation. So before the pull, we're going to Iron Skin Brew, and then we're going to Keg Smash right away so we can start getting that cooldown reduction. So we're going to Iron Skin Brew and then Keg Smash. Then we're going to Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm to start that, you know, first rotation going. Then we're going to Breath of Fire afterwards to start the debuff. We're going to Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm again. We're going to Rushing Jade Wind, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, and then we have our Keg Smash coming back up again. So that's kind of how we're going to work with things. And then after we put our Breath of Fire on, we have quite a long time before that dot falls off, so we can fill it in with things like Exploding Keg or anything else that would take up a GCD. So we're going to run through this one more time. So we're going to Iron Skin Brew, then Keg Smash, and then start going into everything. So we're going to Iron Skin Brew, Keg Smash, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Breath of Fire, get the debuff, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Rushing Jade Wind, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Keg Smash. And that's kind of our rotation. We're just going to keep cycling through this as best as we can in order to maintain as much fluency as possible. We're going to get as much DPS pushed out of here as we possibly can. Now, when you're running lower haste and you're running Blackout combo, of course, you're going to need to use Black Ox Brew eventually, because you just are going to start running out of energy. You'll start to see delays in your rotation to where you have to wait like that half second before you have 40 energy to do a Keg Smash. You have to wait that half second before you can have enough energy to do a Tiger Palm. And so there will become a point where you kind of just have to wait, or you kind of just, you have to use your Black Ox Brew then and there if you want to maintain a perfect DPS rotation. So now we're going to try to go ahead and do our 2 Tiger Palm rotation. Now, I don't have the haste for it, so I can't properly replicate it. But the 2 Tiger Palm rotation, if you guys were playing back in Nighthold and Emerald Nightmare, this is mostly what you guys are probably used to by now. So that's why the 3 Tiger Palm might have sounded a little bit foreign to you guys, because you have to delay your Keg Smashes. So with 2 Tiger Palm, you don't delay Keg Smash at all. You delay your Tiger Palms. So we're going to go in, we're going to Iron Skin Brew, Keg Smash, then Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Breath of Fire for the debuff, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Rushing Jade Wind, wait, then Keg Smash, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Filler, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Rushing Jade Wind, wait, Keg Smash again. So you're going to be having that small little window of waiting if you don't have that perfect 14.3% haste. Because if I had that much haste, then my Keg Smash would be coming off before my Blackout Strike, so I didn't have to wait at all. So that's why it's important to do that. Now, of course, if you don't have any face palms, this is what you're going to be doing anyway. Now, the high tolerance rotation, you can basically keep the exact same thing, because the Blackout combo rotation tries to maximize Blackout Strike usage so that both you get the DPS from Blackout Strike and you also get the Mastery Elusive Brawler stacks as much as possible as well. So you can basically use the Blackout combo rotation while using high tolerance. Just make sure that you throw in a couple extra Tiger Palms here and there, because otherwise you might get to a point where you cap out on energy, and you obviously don't want to do that. So I'm going to try my hardest to show you guys the Lust rotation. So I have 1 Drums of Fury with me, so I only get 1 chance at this. But the Lust rotation is a little bit more strict and tight, because Keg Smash has a much faster cooldown, of course. Now, I have Drums of Fury, so it's only 25% extra haste instead of 30% extra haste. So the cooldown might not be exact, but I'm still going to try my best to show you guys exactly what to do. So in between each Keg Smash, we only have like 4 or 5 GCDs in order to work with. So we need to maximize Tiger Palm, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm casts, and we also need to keep up our Rushing Jade Wind and keep up our Breath of Fire uptime. So it's really difficult, but it can be done. It can be done. So really quick, let's go ahead and put on Drums of Fury. And we're going to do this in 3, 2, 1. Drums of Fury, go in. Keg Smash, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Breath of Fire for the debuff, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Keg Smash, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, and then Rushing Jade Wind to get the debuff, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Keg Smash, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm. Breath of Fury is about to fall off, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, Keg Smash, Blackout Strike, Tiger Palm, and then Rushing Jade Wind. And you just kind of rinse and repeat like this. You only have like 2 maybe Blackout Strikes and Tiger Palms before in between the Keg Smash rotation, but that's kind of how it works. So, you know, with the 5% extra haste, it might look a little bit different, but the rotation is going to be exactly the same. You need to maintain Breath of Fire, you need to maintain Rushing Jade Wind, you need to keep Keg Smash on cooldown, and you need to fill in as many Blackout Strike Tiger Palms as you can. Of course, this makes as much benefit of Blackout combo as possible, so you get as much DPS out of this, but again, survivability works over everything. So Expel Harms and Fortifying Brews and whatever else in order to maintain pure survival trumps over DPSs in a raid. So that's mostly what all of the rotation is going to be. I didn't really get a good opportunity to use Black Ox Brew. My bad. All these like Black Ox stuff is really hard to keep track of. But I'm just kind of run through my rotation here as best as I can while trying to show you when I'm going to use Black Ox Brew. So you see here, I'm running low. I just use an Iron Skin Brew. I have 0 brews left, but I'm also about to get one. Then I just used one here. I'm kind of waiting a little bit more. And then right about now is when I would use it, right before I have a Keg Smash up, because you want to be able to use your energy as soon as you get it, because otherwise you're just wasting precious seconds of DPS and brew generation. But you also want to use it when you have 0 brews, so you get the max benefit out of it. For the most part, you're going to be using your Black Ox Brew either A, when you need to have the Purify now and you messed up how many brews you used, or B, when you need to have the energy right now and you need to use your Keg Smash or maybe a Tiger Palm as soon as possible. But the main things after you use a Black Ox Brew are to use your energy as quickly as you gained it, and then also use one of your brew charges as quickly as you gained them too. So that's kind of how everything works with Brewmaster rotation. It's a little bit on rails, it's a little bit difficult, but after some practice, you'll start to understand like, wow, like I can easily fit in a Rushing Jadewind after this Tiger Palm combo, and then I can easily fit in this after a Tiger Palm combo. Oh, Keg Smash is coming off? Okay, then I can do it now. You know, you just kind of mentally learn and have this muscle memory, so you kind of get as much DPS as you can while still maintaining all of your other tanking duties. Alright, so I believe that's everything in the video, so I know I might have missed something or else. I know I forgot about it in my other guide, but if I do forget something or something does happen to change on Blizzard's end for some balancing issue, then I will pin a comment down below detailing everything that's new and everything that's changed since I made this video. Also, I really hope that I was able to help you and you guys were able to take something away from this, whether you are a brand new Brewmaster or you are the top of your class, you know, and getting all those orange parses. I hope I was able to help you in some sort of way. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Keggernaut, because I stream kind of regularly and you can go ahead and ask me questions in the chat and all that good stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching for the last time. I appreciate all your support, and please, I hope to see you guys in the next video.